You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
That's right, baby. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. Happy Tuesday. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also hosts his own show, The Rational Egoist. For all those of you who are new to the conversation, Michael, what is The Rational Egoist and what's going on with it presently?
Rational Egoist, show about ideas. We cover philosophy, economics, politics, psychology, criminal justice, you name it. If it's an idea, we cover it. I highly suggest right now we're out for a while because my producer's on some sort of a trip. But when she gets back, I've already got some episodes in the queue, an economics episode, a psychology episode. Today I'm recording with Andy Bernstein. We're going to be reviewing $1 Million Baby. But I highly suggest that anybody that wants to go back and you can watch all the episodes. They're all there on the Rational Egoists YouTube channel. If you listen to them, you're going to learn, I promise.
Yes, I think, Rand used to say that there were books that she read that made her smarter. I think that watching your show will make you smarter, folks. It's a workout in reason, and we all need that. I think every day. I think gym work on every level for all of us is a great thing. Folks, I just want to give our typical disclaimer that we are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party. Everything we say here is our own opinions. They oftentimes ally with the policies of the American Capitalist Party. For those specifically, go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and check them out. See what you think. I think they are a great alternative to the establishment statists out there today, the tribalists who are usually just trying to acquire power to leverage for their own particular constituencies. They don't have the good of the people, of you and I, the individual, in mind ever, but we do. Well, I guess before we proceed, we're going to see a question up here or something. And not sure I like where reason meets reality. Isn't reason dependent on reality? Is there reason that doesn't meet reality? Well, I'm not going to get into crazy semantics, Ian, like that. We'll get into a silly philosophical discussion that I don't think is necessary. I think people get the idea from the bumper that reason and reality come together here as they should, as opposed to other political parties, folks, where reason and reality are far from one another.
Check this out. Deeper with Diego has the perfect answer.
Ian, if this show's purported reach was for a planet of objectivists, then yeah. Okay, you're right. Thank you, Deep with Diego.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we objectivists are a contentious particular bunch.
Yes, we do. We do tend to fight amongst each other a lot. But hey, man, I think it's great because we're all working out these ideas, right? We're all sorting these things out and applying them to our own lives. And part of the way of doing that is open discussions like this, open discussions like the ones we have every day. You sent me a. I
gotta say something first. You always have to say, Michael. We should add it to the show. You should say, Michael, is there anything you would like to say to the audience? Because there is. I actually would like to apologize to the audience for losing my temper a little bit yesterday. I can't promise it'll be the last time it happens because I'm a passionate guy. I really disagreed with the guy yesterday, but I could have handled it better. I can, honestly say that. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But again, it'll probably happen again because in the moment, it's not always easy to tell if our responses are too much. So I'll keep going. And as Ariana says, we mentally check and challenge each other. Yes, we do.
I think that's a fantastic thing, folks. It keeps us pure. and it keeps us good. Cat Sterling says, when are you all going to doing the stuff on Patreon? I think we talked about this, Michael. We're starting next week. So look forward to that, folks. The intersection of philosophy and psychology. I think it'll be super helpful to people out there. I know philosophy was super helpful in my life, and I was on the couch from the time I was 16 years old, and I found it even more helpful. And perhaps it was just because later on I was able to integrate the stuff I was learning on the couch, but I found philosophy more helpful towards my life and towards getting the problems sorted out in my life and working in a more valuable and effective way than any of the stuff that I learned from my psychologist, to be honest with you. Do you have anything to say about that, Michael? I'm trying to bring that into the show now. What do you?
I can't wait to do it. Well, I was thinking about the upcoming show we're going to be doing, and I thought, neither one of us are professional philosophers or psychologists, yet each of us has benefited tremendously from philosophy and psychology. And I think that actually helps to bring a different perspective than just sort of a pedagogic or the therapeutic take. Is we're coming from sort of the other side where we've actually used these ideas to improve our lives. I think it's great. I can't wait to do it. I'm just waiting for you, to get it together kind of.
So in that respect, folks, we are like you out there trying to find our way, right? Trying to find our way in life and using philosophy as a means of doing that. Because you guys aren't professional psychologists or philosophers either, for the most part, although many of you objectivists think you are.
What is What is this Boondock Saints? I've heard about this a few times. What is it?
It's a movie.
Yeah, okay, about what? You got to go a little further than that, so I understand.
It's like a group
Race Jacobson says that I dip my toe into Boondock Saints objectivism. So I want to know what it is.
But Race, explain it a little bit more, because I've only seen pieces of Boondock Saints, but I think it's a group of guys who, like, I don't know, sort of take over the community and get revenge, like bad guys who do good things. I don't know, something like that. But Race, you can explain it to us here, and then Michael, I will allow you to make a comment on whatever Race says, because
you'll allow me.
Yeah, I want you to participate more in these conversations.
You're not the boss. Wait, you're giving this impression that you're the boss. You're not the boss.
Sort of the boss. Although that's true.
Ever since you got this new hairdo, you're way too high on yourself.
It's true. We are co-bosses, because you do send me 1,000 articles in the morning. So you're up at 3 a.m. for some reason. It's an ungodly reason you don't sleep. And I get the dings on my freaking phone at 3 a.m. For Christ's sakes, go to
this
sleep.
morning. They would have been about 12. You're in Cali, right?
Yes.
All right. So then this morning it would have been about midnight, because I was up at 1:30 this morning.
Got to do a sleep study, man.
No. This time it was not my fault. So Diana gets up, and instead of just going up the stairs, she decides she's going to turn the light on because she can't see. She turned the light on. It woke me up, and then it was over. This is like a little after 1, maybe even 1:30, and I couldn't get back to sleep. So then around a little after 2, I said, well, I might as well start reading articles. I'll read them all, get them to Mark, and then I'll be able to go to sleep. And that's what I did. So I was up from about 1:30 till 5:30, and then went back to sleep until 8:30.
Okay, well, yes, Dan, that's not a good thing to turn the light on when your mate is trying to sleep. I've had that happen to me several times. It is a pet peeve of mine, particularly because if my wife is sleeping, I never turn a light on. I creep into the room, bashing my fucking head and chins on shit, sometimes quietly cursing under my breath that I am considerate enough not to turn on a light to negotiate my way through the room, because turning on a light when somebody's in a dead sleep sucks. So Ray Jacobson's hit on it more specifically than what I said. It's a vigilante justice movie, Irish good old boys versus the Italian mafia in Boston. I wonder who wins.
I'm definitely going to watch this. Cat Sterling here is referencing a different movie. I don't know if this is the porn version or what, but she says there was supposed to be a boob doc Saints movie. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if we're going to get into the boob docs, but whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, not a fan of the boob docs. So you sent me
really? Okay, I am, but we can move on.
I didn't say I wasn't a fan of boobs. I said I'm not a fan of.
It's implied.
Okay. I know. Ron Smith, you sent me who is Ron Smith? Do you know Ron Smith? Or did
I
you
have no
send,
idea. He
or you
came
sent,
across my feed and I liked it.
yeah, so Ron Smith sent a text that said Trump, uh, we have to bring back religion in our country stronger than ever before. Now, he says two separate things here that are sort of just both insane and frightening for anybody out there who likes liberty and is seeing the rumblings of the Trump administration a certain tendency towards authoritarianism. So he says we have to bring back religion in our country stronger than ever before. No, we don't. That's a frightening thing that he's saying, but we'll talk about that. I think it's a separate issue from the next thought. Leave it to Trump to be speaking not in on point, but to bring up various disparate points in the same sentence. Our country is now the hottest nation anywhere in the world. No, it's not. And we can talk about that as well. 1 year ago, the country was dead, perhaps, but it's not getting any better. It's not. If it's improving, it's still on life support, folks. And there's no real stomach on the part of the MAGA movement in particular to take us off life support. They don't have the ideological tools. They don't have the economic, philosophical, and intellectual tools to take us off life support. They do have the philosophical tools to inject us with methamphetamine and make us feel like we're off life support when we're not, leading to a catastrophe down the road, but that's a whole other issue. Of course, Ron Smith goes on to say, what a weird thing to say after the terrible jobs report. Of course, because we know Trump is a primacy of consciousness guy. That means he thinks his consciousness creates reality. Whatever he says must be so. We are not those types of people, folks. Objectivists do not believe in the primacy of consciousness. We think consciousness perceives something. So there's something comes primary to consciousness, and that's existence, folks. So I would prefer a guy in there who is connected to reality, understood that reality preceded him, and that his job is to understand the facts of reality, integrate them rationally, and then do something about it based on a moral or ethical code of principles. Now, let's deal with the first thing first, Michael. Do you think we need to bring religion back to our country and make it stronger than ever before?
No, and my OCD on this issue has been in overdrive the last few days. Anybody that follows me on X or Facebook, I'm sure you've picked up on it, that I'm like a dog with a bone. Something gets there, my OCD kicks in, and I hammer it to death. And this is one of those things. The other day, there's a guy from Connecticut. He's kind of a nemesis of mine, Daniel Moresi. He's run for office here in Connecticut. He always tells me how libertarians never win anything. And then I pointed it out to him, dude, how long you been running for office? Like he thinks I'm, because I was a spokesperson for the Libertarian Party at Connecticut. So he associates me with libertarians, which I really don't care about. But dude, you're a guy who's never won an office you've run for. Stop telling me about how libertarians can't win. You know what I mean? The old people in glass houses thing. But anyways, he was talking the other day. He posted about how America was founded on biblical principles, that both Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution are all rooted in the 10 Commandments. It's all nonsensical. It's just not true. Now, it's of course true that the founders, as well as everybody else, has been influenced by the Bible. You couldn't escape it being alive. It doesn't mean that the Bible was the primary influence on these ideas. The Enlightenment was, which was in many ways counter Christian, counter religious, counter faith. But then the guy tells me Thomas Jefferson wrote his version of the Bible for the colonists. Again, not true. Thomas Jefferson wrote a distilled version of the Bible that excluded miracles. Yes. It was only the moral teachings in the New Testament that he distilled, and he didn't do it for the colonies because it was written in 1820. There were no colonies at that time in this part of the world, meaning the mainland United States. They were now states, and he also only did it for himself and shared it with a few people. It wasn't for the public. But Daniel Moresi told me that I lack reading comprehension, and he still will go on, despite the fact that I pointed it out to him, despite the fact that it's easily reviewable. He will still go out and preach that America is a Christian country. And people will say to me, one guy said, this is why objectivists can't win, because you're always attacking faith. Well, what are we supposed to do? Right? This is one of these issues where I get it. I get that people are turned off. Some people are turned off if you preach against faith. I understand that 100%. When you speak against religion, you're going to turn people off. But when the vice president of the United States is touting faith and touting Christian values, when the president of the United States is saying things like this, when you've got massive amounts of influencers out there talking about how we need to return to Christianity and they want to implement their religious agenda, what are we supposed to do? Just pretend it's okay? Because it's not okay.
Michael, don't you think it's apropos, given the final statement that Ron said here? What a weird thing to say after the terrible jobs report. Because what are we really railing against when we're talking about faith? Most people take faith to like they take altruism to be this broad definitional thing that encompasses something that it really doesn't.
They do that. Hold on one second. I got to interrupt you because I think I'm going to get to what you're getting at. They do that when challenged. For instance, when you go against faith, they'll say, well, you have faith that people are going to stop at red lights, or you have faith that people are going to serve your burgers.
They confuse it with assumptions or beliefs that,
trust.
Trust that, over time, you've actually developed that trust because you've seen that it's been happening over and over again. So you can put your trust in that. But really what we're railing against, folks, is an anti-rational perspective. So it's not that faith is about a belief in something. It's a belief in things unseen and unprovable, and even despite evidence to the contrary. So the stronger the faith, okay, there's literally a proportional relationship between the strength of the faith and the degree to which it goes against the facts of reality. So that we're arguing against an epistemology that does not consider reality a viable input to its conclusions. We are rationally based, folks. We don't think faith is a means of knowledge. We don't think it's a means. We don't think rejecting reality and going with your feels is how you understand reality. We think reason is. And so I see that Trump, as a primacy of consciousness guy who wants to pretend like things are a certain way, would promote this kind of epistemology because he wants people to be on that same primacy of consciousness page as him. He wants them to feel their way through reality, and he doesn't want them to discern. And folks, reason is discernment. Now, what do you think about our country being the hottest nation anywhere in the world? Again, a primacy of consciousness statement. Because he feels it or because he wants it to be so, it is so. But as I tell actors in class, just because you say it's so, it doesn't make it so, and in this case, it's the same with Trump. The numbers are not really adding up. And this is, we're going to be discussing this in some of the later articles today. The tariffs are beginning to have a deleterious effect on the economy. There's no question about it. The massive indiscriminate immigration, anti-immigration, where they are simply taking people now going into workplaces and arresting people in workplaces, is having a very terrible effect on our economy that is going to spread exponentially as time goes on, folks. There's no denying it. Now, he can fire as many people from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as he wants, but he can't evade that reality for long. Michael, do you think we are the hottest nation on earth right now? Or does it seem like he's created a bunch of enemies in our friends who are now uniting with some of our enemies and creating economic blocks that are pretty much thinking that, it might be time to block America out of the trade situation altogether?
So I don't know if America is the hottest country in the world right now. I haven't been to other countries, but I know that things are not going the way that Trump and his followers said they would go once Trump got to implement his policies, right? He's touted tariffs as a means to bring back manufacturing jobs. We're down manufacturing jobs. He's talked about how the economy is going to boom. And while we do have decent GDP growth at 3%, which is good relative to what we've had recently, the jobs are going down. I think there was 29,000 jobs.
But do we know how much of that GDP growth is driven by government at all?
Government spending? No, we don't. I have no idea. But The point is that things are not going the way that he said they would. These tariffs are supposed to be this grand bargaining chip that are, we're going to use it to basically muscle other countries into agreeing with us or giving us good deals. And what we've actually done is driven other countries closer together and further away from us. So that's not a good thing either. And you make a really good point about the primacy of consciousness, because in Trump world, Trump says, and his followers believe and repeat. And that's all they have to do. Facts are irrelevant. Any facts that you present to them that run counter to their narrative, they will say it's fake news. It's coming from some media outlet. And of course, the trustworthiness of the media outlet isn't determined based on independent factors. It's based on what they say about Trump. So, for instance, a traditionally conservative-leaning paper like the Wall Street Journal, if that says something bad about Trump, Trump then comes on and says this is fake news, this is a dying newspaper, same with National Review, etc.
Yeah, once again, he's all about what he feels, and when reality intrudes, he evades it. And look, that's disastrous. We're going to see how disastrous that is in the coming 2 years. Hopefully, it can be averted by a midterm election, which they are trying to change the results of by redistricting at the moment. Robert says, if we are the hottest nation on earth, it's only because we already were, and Donald J. Trump hasn't managed to destroy us yet. I have to agree with you, sir. Kat Sterling says something interesting about faith that I think we should both address here, Michael. Faith is fine in a reasonable amount. Okay, good. You're putting it up there. It comforts some people, but you can't base your entire existence and country around your religion. You have to think for yourself. I agree with this last statement. I disagree with the first part of the statement. Michael, do you disagree with the first part of the statement that you can have reasonable amounts of faith?
I've actually been going back and forth in my mind since she posted this about 5 minutes ago, I think, whether to address it or not, because we love Kat Sterling. And also, I don't know how far afield it's going to take us in the discussion. But ultimately, I think you're right. No, there is no reasonable amount of faith, because how do you decide what to put your faith in and what not to? How do you decide where to draw that line? Reason cannot draw that line. If reason is making decisions, there's no point at which it says, okay, let me stop and turn this over to faith, right? You simply can't do that in a logical process. Right. And if you're relying on faith, there's no point at which you can say, okay, now I need to act reasonably, because the faith is your guide. And if faith is your guide, it's purely a matter of chance whether you end up Osama bin Laden or some, monk in the Middle Ages, right? It's just a matter of chance where you were born, what you were taught, because you've literally turned your mind over to your emotional, to your whims. And you simply cannot do that with impunity. So while I get the sentiment, I think that Kat is putting out there, and a lot of people do, they say that. Well, I remember reading an article in the aforementioned National Review years ago about reason and faith, and we need both. But the two cannot coexist.
They're opposite epistemological values, folks. And Kat, you need to know that. That's why we're sort of harping on it, even though we know what you're saying. Words are important. They mean things, and people act on those words. I want to give a concrete example, Mike, of how it works when someone has a basic orientation that's faith, but they attempt to deal rationally with a lot of the world. There was a political commentator here in Los Angeles for a long time before he got severely injured, a conservative Jewish man by the name of Dennis Prager. I'm sure you've heard of him. Have you heard of Dennis
Prager? Yeah, he debated Dave Smith. He's what's the name? Right. He has what's the name of his channel? I'm drawing a blank.
Well, it's the Dennis Prager show that it used to be on 870 out here. But he started out with a show called Religion on the Line 30 years ago, and he's a very, very religious Jew who takes his religion very seriously. Now, to me, I would listen to his commentary on world events and political events, and he was one of the more rational people out there. And I always wondered, after I got Objectivism, when it would be that the irrational aspects of his faith would start to supersede the reason, when they would start to completely metastasize and take over the rational parts. And I noticed that his Prager University videos started to do that. One in particular was a video, Michael, actually saying the Enlightenment and the individual and the individualism that came from the Enlightenment, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, are responsible for all of the problems that we are having right now. He actually,
I believe I saw that. Who was that that said that? And it's Prager University, by the way.
Prager,
That's what I was thinking of.
Prager University, and it was a philosopher or thinker who had, or maybe historian, who made that comment. I can't remember who it is. Maybe somebody in the chat could find that. And I realized at that time that his irrationality, his faith, had finally taken over, and because it has to, folks. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Michael and I were talking the other day. If you have competing values, you're going to have a self-esteem that is roughshod. You won't have a very strong self-esteem or a sense of confidence in yourself. That confidence comes from moral confidence. It comes from knowing where you stand in the world and what values you're pursuing. And you can't be torn and split on those. You can't hold two contradictory values at the same time, folks, without being miserable. One has to win out. And for the religious folks, oftentimes that means faith. And that then bleeds into every other aspect of their lives, right? You have to be very curious about a scientist like Ben Carson who thinks the earth is 6,000 years old because the Bible told him so. That how he could be a great neurosurgeon and at the same time hold that opinion is astounding to me. Eventually, one or the other is going to win in that battle. So anyway, folks, you also sent me another tweet. There's some good tweets going out there, folks. There's a little bit of dissent, I think, starting to form, rational dissent against the Trump administration. Of course, that will probably lead to some interesting authoritarian shutdowns or some scathing remarks on the part of Trump as people start to shift away from him as savior to him as potentially massive fuck up. So this guy Richard Hanania, do you know this guy, or did it just show up in your feed and you liked it?
No, I don't know him personally, I do follow him. He's sort of a conservative, but he's very controversial within that. He critiques Trump, which makes him persona non grata with a lot of folks.
Which is unfortunate, folks. They are going to have a come to Jesus moment. I guarantee it in the next year. If they don't get away with their redistricting.
Was that an intended pun just now or no?
It was pun intended. So Richard Hananas says the thing about working for Trump is you just have to surrender your dignity completely. I've discovered this. I can't find anything wrong with this statement. Maybe Michael, you can. I'll go on and see if we can find any errors here. Other leaders would admit obvious facts and try to spin. Now, that's an interesting comment. So, in the past, leaders understood that they were incompetent, that their policies weren't working, but they would somehow try to lie to the public about it. And we think that on a certain level they were intelligent enough, or at least smart enough grifters to realize they knew they were lying. They knew they were pulling something over on the people. But because they had shame, they had a sense that they knew I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something that's politically expedient, but I have to do it for the sake of my tribe. So this allowed honest and decent people to work for them, not this administration. Of course, I don't think it allowed, maybe that means that people who could critique the administration actually worked for them. But this is not the case with Trump. We are increasingly seeing a group of yes men around him who do not contradict him. And when asked questions, like when Kristi Noem or any secretary, any of the cabinet members who have extremely powerful positions of influence with the president, are asked what they think, they as individuals think about a particular policy thing, they decline to comment and defer to President Trump. Every single time, not a single independent thinker in the group. And this is scary because a man in that position of power needs people to tell him, no, this is wrong. And any person of decent self-esteem, Michael, would likely surround himself with contrarians because he wants to hear the other point of view, because that's the only way to compare and contrast that he's going to come to the truth. You know who did that well? Lincoln. Lincoln surrounded himself with political rivals who one disrespected him from the very beginning and ended up respecting him later on, but he wanted to hear the criticism. It wasn't just a politically pragmatic thing that he wanted to keep his enemies close and know what they were up to in a time that was pretty scary, where enemies were all around Washington. But it was also because these people were advanced statesmen who had something to say and he wanted to hear it. He acknowledged his own inexperience in that realm and grew from it as a result and became a great statesman in his own right. I know there's libertarians who disagree with me, considered him a tyrant. And of course, he expanded presidential power in a way that it has not retracted since. But Michael, what do you think about this? Surrounding yourself with yes men like this, dangerous? Do you think it's as dangerous as I think?
I absolutely do. And this Ayn Rand fan club, Scott Schiff, says they've learned not to trust the media. And here's the thing that I always find interesting with this. Okay, don't trust the media. I'm on board. But how does that translate into trusting every word that comes out of Trump's mouth? How does that translate into just repeating his lies one after the other? Right? That's the issue. A lot of these people, posture as if they're skeptics, but they're the most gullible people on the planet. Now, I don't think the people that you're talking about are gullible. I think they're just sycophants who tell him what he wants to hear because they want to ride the Trump gravy train. So that's what they do, is they just come out and they just say whatever the hell Trump wants them to say. Now, it's true that politicians have been liars, going back to antiquity. But in the past, they would be embarrassed when they got caught lying. They would try to spin it. They wouldn't just deny it outright. But that's what we have with Trump. Now, Scott Schiff says they disagree in private, but they put on a united front. I don't know how he knows that. I guess if he can say something arbitrary, so can I. No, they don't. They all agree in private. You don't have any more proof than I do, so let's just say things. But you need to have people in your life that are going to tell you when you're wrong. My friend Brent, for a very long time, served that role for me. Because, we're often blinded to our own behaviors. We don't know when we've gone too far, when we've said something we shouldn't have, when we're just mistaken, and we need people to tell us. Yesterday, for instance, after the show, you really reamed me out. You went up one side of me and down the other. No, you didn't really do that. But you did tell me that I was a little too hard on the guy in the chat. So when you tell me that, I say, okay, well, let me think about this a little bit. And it turns out you're right. But if I just surround myself with people who are going to say, no, Michael, you're right, keep going, you're right, then I'll just keep going until I walk off a cliff. That's not a good thing. That's not what I want. That is what Trump wants.
Yeah. Look, I remember watching the David Letterman show when Trump came on. This was as he was sort of percolating the idea of putting himself in the political world. And he was hawking his shirts. So I guess, he always had some brand that he was hawking: steaks, vodka,
Trump University, right?
Well, I think this was before then, but at the time it was shirts, these Trump shirts that were supposed to be so elegantly made. And while he's there, he's talking about how China's eating our lunch and we really need to tamp down on China. We need to stop trading with China. We need to stop exchanging with China. So what does David Letterman do? He opens the package of the shirts to look at it, looks at the tag, and what does the tag say? Made in China. What's so funny about
I remember
that,
this, yeah.
He actually says out loud to Trump, "Oh, made in China." The whole crowd goes crazy, just laughing at the hypocrisy. And all Trump does is shrug. He just shrugged. It meant nothing. The hypocrisy meant nothing. It flew by him. Folks, a person who doesn't feel shame over that is a person you should be frightened of. Hey, but there's a comment here by Chuck and Money. I have always seen faith and religion as an explanation for the unexplainable. It allows people who lack the knowledge or ability to understand grounding so they can explain the world around them. I think that's false grounding, Michael. I don't think it's necessarily healthy. I think what's healthy is to say, I don't know. And to live in that maybe possible discomfort of not knowing. And perhaps it inspires you to search for a meaning, a search for an answer, and then maybe find it. But I think acknowledging that you don't know something is healthier than transplanting a fake narrative in there simply to make you feel more comfortable. It's still a form of delusion and evasion, my friend. And I don't think either of those are healthy epistemologically. I don't think they're good for you psychologically. Even though it gives you slight comfort, like, you know, the hit on the crack pipe, it's still down the road, gonna hurt you, and it's gonna take over. What? You didn't like my analogy?
The hit on the crack pipe?
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, dude, you're on fire today. Did you eat your Wheaties this morning? What happened? Did you?
No, I got sleep.
No,
sleep.
no, that's not it. You didn't just get sleep. You took something.
No,
Mark is on performance enhancing drugs. I'm not saying it's a crack pipe, but it's something.
Okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, honestly though, you're spot on. And as we're having this discussion, I come across a post on Facebook from Patrice Larson Almond. She is, one of these, she claims to be an objectivist, is a big conspiracy type person, and she posts this. Maha chief medical advisor, Dr. Asim Malhotra, just declared that no one should have ever taken the COVID mRNA vaccines. And she seems to think that that's some sort of evidence, as if it's a confession. That's what they are. What's his face there? Kennedy is an anti-vaxxer, despite what he says. They've got him on tape recommending people don't take vaccines. Now, does that mean that the statement is wrong? No, not on its face. You'd need further evidence to show that it's false. But the fact that she takes that as evidence that's going to convince anybody that's not already in the cult is insane to me.
We are surrounded by insanity, my friend, but you know what? We are an island of sanity in this universe of craziness. So remember to go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and read those very sane policies. Get yourself out of this tribal morass that we are stuck in. You don't have to be stuck there, folks. We have free will. We can get out of it. You can also like and share this channel so that the concepts of rational egoism get out there in the world. The concepts of individual rights become popular again and take over what we're seeing happening today. Ian Gilmore says, is that why he has praise sessions in his cabinet meetings? I got to tell you, Michael, whenever I see Trump's cabinet meetings, I want to shoot myself. I mean, because they are, look how great the president is, meetings. I mean, that's what these people are doing. They tout some policy they look with adoring. It has to be at this point. They have to see the emperor has no clothes, but maybe not. But they look at him with this fawning look, and they talk about how great a job he's doing, and his chin is up in the air, Mussolini style, and he's taking that in and nodding Mussolini style. And it's like 3 hours of this nonsense. Clearly the man has, first of all, you could say this. If you're cynical, you could say, look, it's not about his self-esteem. It's not that he has low self-esteem. He understands PR, and he thinks when you put an idea out there enough times, people are going to start taking that as the truth. So what do you think? This is cynical ploy, or do you think it's cynical ploy mixed with low self-esteem? Or is it just some guy who's so grandiose and malignantly narcissistic? He doesn't know.
I think that he is a very insecure individual who accidentally came across and implemented very, very good tactics of propaganda and of marketing. But you mentioned the emperor has new clothes. And can you explain the shirt that you're wearing, please?
Yeah, so this is a rash guard, folks. I usually wear a rash guard because I go from here to jiu-jitsu, but this is my long sleeve rash guard because I'm going to no-gi, and I always scrape up my elbows, and so I don't want to scrape up my elbows, so I got the long sleeve version of it. So
what is that voice? Why are you doing that voice?
Because I like the way the S's come out when I do that voice. The S's come out.
All right.
Glass cutting S's. That's what I like. Manu. Did I pronounce that right, Manu? Or
No, we've already been over this. No.
Manu?
I had something else I wanted to say. Oh, what I want you to do, Mark, I keep forgetting this. Well, no, actually, I don't keep forgetting it because I just realized it today. I always tag you in. When I post the show to X, I tag you in and then you share it. I need you to share directly from YouTube. You need to go to the YouTube channel and share the show.
Which is what I've been telling everybody else to do.
But you don't do it.
Yes. I forget. Sorry. My bad. All right. I'll try to be better next time. So Manu or new man. Look, having a friend like that assumes that you're not scared of being wrong. So this is having a friend who critiques you, right? Vulnerable and change your mind with your integrity and dignity intact. Trump can't really face himself. He's weak. Absolutely true. She's a psychology student. She knows this stuff too. But you don't have to be a psychology student to see a pathological personality on display in this guy. I mean,
okay.
he just
so
obvious.
Manu is she's going to catch my ire in a second, and I'm going to open up a can of whoop ass because she keeps saying this. When we say Manu, she says not menu. Nobody's saying menu.
Nobody's saying
we're
menu.
saying Manu. We may be getting it wrong, but for God's sake, we're not saying menu.
Yeah,
if you would just tell us how to pronounce the name, we'd get it right. Like, for instance, Ariana, all she had to do was tell us a couple dozen times, and we've got it down. We've got it down pat.
Call it Manu.
What?
Manu. Persephone.
Who says that's it? Who says it's Manu?
Look, Persephone is always right about everything, and she says it's Manu.
What? Manu is right? Is
yes,
Manu right? No, she says no. So stop.
Oh, well, I thought I'm very confused. Before I get any more confused, I think we should go to the article that you sent me on Axios.
Go to the next article, and maybe we'll pronounce that correctly.
I doubt it. So this is daunting news to me a little bit, Michael, but it wasn't as bad as the headline leads out. As usual, they put these headlines up that seem crazy. And, if you only read a paragraph or two in, you're thinking doom and gloom. And then as you get on, the article doesn't quite deliver what the headline says. So let me read you the headline. Americans give capitalism lowest ever rating in new Gallup survey. Now, while that's true, it did happen. It's not quite as awful as it seems just by reading that. And when I first read that, I was like, wow, we have a very difficult task in front of us.
I disagree. Well, I know what you're going to say, and I disagree. Go.
You know what I'm going to say, that we have a very difficult task in front of us? Or
I know what you're going to say, why you think.
Well, the reason I didn't think, look, let me just explain why I didn't think it was.
Can you stop interrupting me when I'm interrupting you?
Let me tell you why I didn't think it was as bad. Okay, so this may completely nix what you're going to say to me, because I thought it was worse. Let me just put it that way. So when I read the headlines, I'm like, oh crap! 30% of the American people now have a positive view of capitalism, and 60% of the people now hate capitalism and want something else. That wasn't the case. There was still a majority of people that liked capitalism, or that had a favorable view of capitalism, 54%, if I'm remembering correctly. So because it didn't meet my expectations, which were incredibly low, it wasn't as disappointing to me. Now, does it suck that 46% of the population have an unfavorable view towards capitalism, and that these people vote? And they vote for people with certain economic ideologies that want to put economic policies in place that these folks, this 46% of folks, will think will cause improvement, but will in fact make things worse? Yes, that frightens me. But it wasn't as bad as I thought. Now, of course, this changes along party lines, with more Republicans tending to like capitalism than Democrats, who tend to like socialism. But there is a strong movement within this new right that is very, very anti-capitalistic, and Trump is demonstrating a very anti-capitalistic tendency. And so it seems like with the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the Candace Owens of the world, that the right is moving decidedly towards a fascist, nationalist, statist, corporatist world, where they pretty much control what the state does for the national interest, which is fascism, my folks. And so the last bastion of the right that was at least nominally for capitalism is disappearing very quickly in the new right, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. What were you going to say, Michael? So do you think I was wrong? I thought it was worse, and so that's
Well,
why.
here's the thing, and I just want to tell you, like Persephone just disappeared off the screen. I don't know what she was doing. You guys, the two of you, need to understand when you're in the studio, I can see you. Even when you can't see me, I had to explain this to Persephone earlier because she was giving a rock concert and didn't realize I was watching. So that's the first thing I just wanted to mention. So if people saw me looking down at the screen, I was watching where Persephone was going. I thought she was abandoning us. So the problem is people don't know what capitalism is. So if you reframe the question and say, what do you think about free markets or small business, for instance, they have a favorable idea. The reason I said I disagreed with your take about not being worried about it, because yes, they have a faulty idea of what capitalism actually is, but that's a problem for those of us trying to communicate. Because when you're communicating with somebody and you say, well, capitalism is the system that does X, and then you're making an argument based on what capitalism actually is, but they have a misconception in their head. They're saying, no, your premises and your logic are all wrong. And that's a very big problem, and it's very difficult to overcome. Now, there's a few strategies we could take. We could do away with the term, give it back to Marx, and just use free markets or free enterprise. But that's clunky, and when you do that, there's always the chance that that gets bastardized too. So it's just an uphill battle for us. And Manu says that I am pronouncing her name correctly, and thank you very much. I usually am correct. Mark said yesterday that he, beats me to the goal line or some boomer fantasy that he has. He clearly does not. It's not Manu, dude. It's Manu.
Manu has been hating on me lately, so you're just going to encourage her to give more pro-Liebowitz stuff in the conversation here in the comment section. And we don't.
Why would that be a bad thing for me?
More pro-Liebowitz comments.
Yeah, that's a hell of an argument to make against it. When you're trying to convince somebody, Mark, you don't tell them, hey, if you keep doing that, people are going to be praising you. Like that's not how you convince
that wasn't
people.
You dropped some of the context there, but
I didn't drop anything.
Here's the thing, Michael. I think what the left and the right both get united about here is that they hate big business, right? So it's easy for people to understand the concept of free trade when it's with smaller businesses. But once you get to the big business area, you see that, well, these folks are influencing government. And it falls straight into the Marxist trope about what capitalism is, which is really a political system that works for the wealthy, for the bourgeois, for the owners, right? Because these people are using their influence. They have in government, they have regulatory capture, and they're basically determining what the markets, what the competitors in their business are going to do. So people see this and they equate this with capitalism. Of course, that corporate statism is not capitalism. It's a kind of fascism. Fascism means that there is nominal private control over your property, but nominal ownership over your property, but the government controls what you do. Now, these big companies, big pharma, for example, big anything, they contribute to the political class so that the political class gives them privileges that give them market favors that would not exist in a totally free world. Now, that doesn't mean there wouldn't be huge businesses, conglomerates like Amazon, but they would be there for a certain period of time and then they'd go away like they do. Like, you see Microsoft at one time ascendant, then Apple takes over, then other organizations become the big bad for a while. But folks, capitalism isn't about big businesses cartelizing and using the government to get special privileges. Capitalism is about the government staying out of economics entirely and only prosecuting bad guys. So they're there to set certain rules, of course, so that we all understand the playing field that we're on. They're there to establish property rights, so everybody understands when they're violating them, and they're there to protect individual rights, the individual rights of the people, of the owners, and of the people who may be victims of those of corporations. But they are not there to determine who wins and who loses. They're not there to divide resources amongst corporations. Or to knock out the competitors of corporations. That is not their point. That is not capitalism. So it's important for us to remind people that what they see today in the corporate status world today, which commies are happy to jump on and say, this is the end result. This is what capitalism always becomes. No, it doesn't always become this. It didn't become that for 100 years. It only became that because of our mixed premises. Did you post this because you wanted? Corporatism is a bit different. That's the economic model of fascism. What is being described would more accurately be called corporatocracy. Okay, well, to me, it's a distinction without difference. Michael, do you see this as a distinction without difference?
No, but I got to ask a question. So I'm wicked thirsty. I've got a full cup of water, but I also have to pee. So I don't want to drink the water. Does anybody else have this problem ever?
Is this now? Can I say this is a non sequitur?
No, because it's not following from an argument. I'm not making an argument. It's what's on my mind. For me, it's very relevant. I've got my full cup of water right here. See, Ian Gilmore says sometimes Manu says yes. Manu, by the way, and Ariana says yes, ha, ha, ha. See, this is a serious problem. Scott Schiff says take a quick break while Mark answers questions.
Hey, here's what I say, man. Pull your shit together. Be tough, grit your teeth, and just sit on it, man. Sit on it. Sit on it.
Sit on it? Is that really the language you want to use?
Sit down on that need to be and just work your way through it, man. You can do it. We've got literally 8 minutes.
I'm gonna make it. I just thought it was an interesting.
You can't hold your pee for 8 minutes.
I didn't say that. I'm not saying I'm going anywhere. I'm just saying it's a dilemma.
Implicit in this was somebody tell me what to do because I feel like getting up.
I didn't say anybody tell me what to do. All I said was,
I said implicit in that.
There's no implicitly. You can't tell me what's in. I'm telling you, it was just a question because I've got the serious dilemma.
Drink the water.
So I'm not going to drink the water. I'm not putting myself through that. I'm going to tough this out and we'll wait until the end. So we do have a question. We do have this. We have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I? Now I got to find it. So in regard to you talking about corporations and what they do and how they end up giving to political parties, Ayn Rand Fan Club actually asked a good question. So this is going to be the one time you will ever hear me praise Scott Schiff. So Scott, you can use this maybe for one of your promos for your show. I think he has a good question here because yes, the incentive structure is entirely cooked so that companies, if they want to succeed, have to do this sort of thing, right? But at what point do you say, well, you just should say, no, it's the wrong thing to do. Don't do it. And I don't know that I could, I don't know that there's a sharp point at which you would do that, where you could show that they're complicit. These are difficult decisions that people have to make. I mean, ultimately, like it's the guy that has to make a living and he goes and he works for a boss who's a jerk to the other employees. And maybe the guy says, you know what? I don't want to work for this jerk. I don't like the way he treats people, but you got to make a living. So
here's one of the problems, Michael, that disincentivizes the rebel, right? Is the antitrust. So when a business gets big enough, that's when they call you in for a congressional hearing like they did to Bill Gates. Now, apparently, Bill Gates didn't have any lobbyists in Washington for a long time. He wasn't paying the piper. And so they call him in for a congressional hearing and they grill him and part of the question is, why aren't you doing this? With the implication that there's a threat behind everything the government says to you. When they ask you why, remember, they're the ones with the guns. It's why it pisses me off when people say the government is controlled by corporations. No. The guys with the guns always have the power. Trust me, the guys with the guns have the power. Now, certainly the guys in the corporations are trying to influence the guys with the guns because they're in a position where when they don't try to do that, they're called before the board and threats are made under in the undertones of what these congressional people are saying, that you're in trouble if you don't start getting with the program. Now, maybe that takes one outlier to break away completely and to fight these people all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't know. I think they would lose given even the tenor of an originalist, semi-originalist court today. I think they would lose. So that at a certain point, I mean, it's like Michael says, it's very complicated because your life is on the line and these people are putting you in a position where you have the choice of either not living, not prospering, not creating values, or going along to the minimal degree that you have to in order to maintain the integrity of your business. Look, This kind of world, this kind of regulatory state makes everybody at once an exploiter and a victim. It is a psychological, it is a psyop against every human being out there. And that includes at our level as well. Just the taxpayer who's exploited for other people, whose incomes are stolen for the sake of other people, but who then are in these programs, forcibly put in these programs, Medicare, forcibly put in Medicare, forcibly in Social Security, who then have claims upon these this money that has been directly taxed out of them to support somebody presently, who now has claims to that stuff, rightfully so, and then becomes more or less the exploiter in his own right. So it's a sick kind of cycle of that just destroys and degenerates human dignity, don't you think, Michael? I mean, you get in this loop. It's a terrible loop that you cannot really get out of unless you have a super strong outlier who is prepared to take on the system. And I don't see anybody like that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with you. Chuck Unmoney says that he always insists people use crony capitalism.
No, I don't like that term.
I don't either. I don't like corporate capitalism. I don't like crony capitalism, state capitalism. I don't like any of it because it's not capitalism. It doesn't need a modifier. Maybe if you, I prefer just cronyism. Ariana's right. She says Mark is, yeah. Ariana says Mark is just dishing out facts left and right today. Look, he's on fire. You got to give Lucifer his due. No doubt about that. But before you get to, I want to address an issue here because Scott back here called me Mike, and then he clears it up and says Michael, which I find interesting because all my life I've gone by Mike. Right? Only once I started doing radio did they call me Michael, because my name on the book, when you write a book, you don't put Mike Liebowitz, you put Michael Liebowitz. So the host of the show would introduce me to Michael Liebowitz. So now everybody calls me Michael. Right, which I'm fine with. I don't care. I mean, I've also gone by Lebo, whatever. It's all good. I just found it interesting that Scott thought he would need to make a correction. I also needed a couple of minutes of a segue to your capitalist thought of the day, so I used that. And now you can give it.
Well, shoot, I did want to talk about Yoram Hazony because I think that I've seen him debate Yaron Brook. He's a conservative nationalist and a Jew, and he's trying to marry all this disparate elements in the new.
Can we save it for tomorrow? We don't, unless you want to go overtime.
In the new conservative movement, and of course, this hits on something that we were talking about the other day about compromise. That I think he's on the losing side of this, and will be on the losing side of it, in forming a coalition of such disparate ethical perspectives. But we can talk about that tomorrow, Mike. We should talk about it tomorrow because I think it's important. Being the
you just called me Mike now.
I did. Did I?
You did. It's cool. It's fine. It's just interesting to me that I just brought it up, and now your subconscious is so susceptible to my influence that you just called me Mike. Evidently, I'm the puppet master on this show.
So, folks, look. According to Axios, capitalism is at its lowest point of acceptance. But I think people don't accept capitalism because they've heard for years that capitalism is something it isn't. They think it's an exploitative system. They come at the world from a zero-sum game perspective where they think you can only be successful at the expense of somebody else. They don't think too deeply about the idea that the reason a person gets successful is because they are taking a fraction of the portion of value that they have created for others. In other words, they have made values for people that people want to such a degree that they've voluntarily given up other values for that. Now, that, folks, is amazing. That is true. If we're going to talk about democracy, not in the political sense, but in the sense of each and every individual being empowered over his own life, that's true democracy in the sense that you have complete and total control over the values that you take into your life. And if somebody becomes successful as a result of that, they become a multimillionaire or a multi-billionaire, understand that it's because they brought so much value into the world that a small portion of that has made them rich, a small portion, and the rest has made the rest of us rich. So the beautiful thing about a free country, folks, a capitalist country, is that everybody gets richer. And that doesn't mean just in material wealth, but in the capacity to realize their potential and to satisfy their own happiness, to reach and attain their own happiness. This is impossible in a socialist community, folks, for reasons economically that Mises has gone over and the Austrians have completely explained, but for other reasons as well. We could talk about it, especially on our show where philosophy interjects with psychology, why socialism and communism are undignified ways to live for human beings, why they degrade the human self-esteem, and why capitalism increases human self-esteem and pride. So, folks, we are fighting for a better world, a world in which capitalism is the economics where everybody can be free to choose. So if you have been on the fence about that, you've got 23 hours to think about that, to check your premises. You also have 23 hours to like and subscribe to this station and to do what I haven't done, which is to go to YouTube and share this across your social media platforms, because these concepts of rugged individualism, rational self-interest, as being the good and as being the benevolent, of creating the benevolent society that we all want to live in, need to get out there in the world, folks, as a counter lever to the tribalism that we're seeing today. So we will see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, where we would talk about the news from a capitalist perspective. Until then, look at theamericancapitalistparty.org. Come to us with your comments. We love you. Keep on keeping on, folks. Peace.